Welcome to a night full of passion and possibility, and all that is we can be. My name is Toufah Jallow. In 2017, Gambians celebrated the fall of a dictator who has ruled the country for almost my entire life. Yahya Jammeh from a small West African country, the Gambia. Yahya Jammeh has been accused of embezzling the country's funds, of killing and torturing, murdering political opponents and journalists, and also raping women. I am one of the women that Yahya Jammeh raped. I am a direct victim of dictatorship. Part of the money embezzled, also money that he has received from the Asian continent. Jammeh built strong ties with Taiwan, but later broke it off after not being able to receive so much, or when he realized that he could receive much more from China. And as we speak, Jammeh has a strong relationship with other dictators around the world. Gambians came together to oust their dictators. But at the center of taking out Jammeh were women's rights groups, dissidents of the Gambia who lived outside of the Gambia, who mobilized political opponents from all over the country to center one political opponent that took out Jammeh. Of course, he refused to step down until a military intervention had to be called for. Taiwan has spent more than $100 million in aid to the Gambia, aid and finances that end up in Jammeh's pockets, whilst the rest of the country were impoverished and living from paycheck to paycheck. When I was 18 years old, as a young woman from a very middle-class family, I participated in a scholarship pageant, promised to study anywhere in the world, promised to study any career that interested me. And that filled me and my family with so much joy. We are less than 2 million people in a culture that is so conservative, where young women don't have a lot of promise for the future. Being married at 12 and 13 is the norm within that culture. Having the possibility to study filled me with a lot of pride, and my family as well. And instead of going to a university anywhere in the world, I was coerced, invited to the State House, and raped by the most powerful man in my country, in the most powerful building in my country. I received calls from protocol officers again and again, and then I realized the president wanted my no to become yes, just like many other powerful men around the world, especially within dictatorships. So I had to flee my country at the age of 18, being homeless, being a refugee in a neighboring country, and then finding asylum in Canada as a protected person. For years, I couldn't tell my story, just like many other survivors of violence, because we do realize that the establishment would rather see through us than actually look at us and listen to us. We are often not representatives of our own stories, and we are supposed to die away, become a headline, and that's it. So after mobilizing with Gambians abroad and on the ground in ousting the dictator and ensuring that women's rights or abuse of women's rights was at the center of holding Jammeh accountable, we were able to have him go to exile in Equatorial Guinea, another dictatorship. I spoke to the New York Times, the CNN. I fight at the International Criminal Court to bring justice to Jammeh and ensuring that sexual violence is part of the crime that he's been convicted for. I opened a foundation. I led the first women's march in the country against not only the dictator, but powerful men and all the residue of dictatorship that is being left in the Gambia. We are a newfound democracy now since 2017. And Taiwan, of all countries, knows what it feels like to move into democratization. And we are as fragile as ever before. The men have used violence against women as a way to entrench their power. So it was important to speak up. It was important to inspire other women. But at the center of that is recognizing the world's attention on me and my story is not because of who I am or my capacity as a human being, but because of the power and the reputation of my rapist, who was a dictator. And when we talk about dictatorships and all the impacts it has on our lives and our inability to thrive as nations and countries, the stories and experiences of women, girls, and young people are often left as a footnote at worst. And today, as I stand here, I think about Peng Shui. It's been exactly a year since the hashtag "Where is Peng Shui?" A question we have not answered, a question we have left on the side. A woman who had the audacity to speak her truth, to tell the entire world that a powerful person in China within the dictatorship violated her sense of informed consent. The dictatorship has done everything to silence this voice, and this voice still continues to be heard, to be visible, and given a lot of respect within the Chinese community and by the government as well. So today I want to reiterate that question, to remind us that the hashtag #MeToo, hashtag "Where is Peng Shui?", hashtag "Women's Lives", hashtag "End Violence Against Women" do not stop just because we are distracted by other things. It doesn't stop because we stop tweeting about it, and it doesn't stop because the New York Times does not put it on the headline anymore. It matters today more than ever that we do ask that question. And this statement from her stuck with me, especially the last part. Yes, I did not have evidence, and it was impossible to have any evidence. Evidence, proof, and allegedly, words that we attach to sexual crimes. We insist that women be able to provide violations done to them, even when they did not see it coming, wanting clarity and for women to outright talk about the abuse that has been done to their bodies in order for us to respect it. I come from a culture and a country that have lived through dictatorship, where a president's motorcade leaves people dead, where people are strangled behind cars, where political opponents have no say, and because we're small on the international stage and we do not give so much when it comes to economic power, the rest of the world do not care. Just like how Taiwan has been sidelined by the international community, the Gambia has been for years. And it took Gambians and Gambian women especially to lead the charge of revolution. And if we are paying attention, we would realize that all of the revolutions around the world required women's movement, from the United States of America to Canada to Taiwan and elsewhere. We also see how women's movements have sparked the need to democratize countries. Iran is a great example. But along that is also how dictatorships and conflict use sexual violence to inflict terror within its community. Myanmar is a great example. Women are being raped in their thousands. Don't forget the Yazidi women. In the end, our quest for democracy is tied into our willingness or unwillingness to fight for women's rights, gender equity, and to denounce violence against women. There isn't a tangible word for rape in my local language. In all of my local languages, when I want to tell you I've been raped, I say to you, they touched my thigh, or they rubbed against me. erasing the cruelty of penetrating someone without their consent, of groping someone without their consent, of pursuing people without their consent. When there isn't a word for rape, and you have this in a country where there is no functioning women's shelter, there are no rape kits in our hospital, rape becomes unaccounted for. Violence against women does not become central to discussing how dictatorship has affected my country. You do want to give up, and often I do, because it is very, very difficult to want to insert women's rights into discussions, in talking about how dictatorships affect women and girls and young people, and how it stops us from thriving and participating in democracies. And I hope countries like Taiwan, in their bilateral relationships with the rest of the world, especially in Africa, would ensure that human rights, women's rights, and democracy is at the center of their relationships with countries like mine. I am happy to say that with the Toufah Foundation, we are mentoring a lot of young women, having opportunities like this to stand here in front of you to bring the stories of Gambian women and girls, women around the world who are existing and living in democracies, and the stories of the violence being done to them are being silenced, to bring those stories to you so we do realize that we need to do more. What can you do? You can bring visibility to our stories. What can the Taiwanese government do within the Asia region is to present itself as a beacon of hope and democracy, a democracy in which women's rights are centered, in which sexual violence matters. We need tech giants to protect activists online and offline as well in our legal cycles. We should be able to do the work we do while keeping safe. Excitingly for me is that we do now have a piece of land for the first functioning women's shelter. We want to draw inspiration from countries around the world who have protected spaces for survivors of violence to run into. If we demand women to say "Me Too," when we encourage young girls to be able to stand up for themselves, if we want to create many more Toufahs who will participate in thriving democracies, we should be able to create safe spaces for them. So I wish you join us. I hope you center women's rights in our quest for democracy. Long live the struggle, power to women, girls, our stories, and more than ever, where is Peng Shui? Thank you.